Welcome back to HQ. Time to tackle fantasy football and the Week 8 waiver wire walkthrough. 6 teams on a bye, so you have assets from Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, Vegas, the LA Rams, or Seattle. This is the place to be.
That's it? Those are the only teams you got?
That's the only teams on the list. Anybody wants to come into the club, I think we're going to have to start digging real deep into the pool of waiver wire guys. But Jamey Eisenberg and Dave Richard here to help us navigate these waters here with all the buys. And Jamey, if we start with quarterbacks, given all the teams I had, some of the injuries, some disappointments like the ones at MetLife currently here, what's the target share in terms of the approach for quarterbacks this week?
Depends which side of MetLife you're talking about.
Correct,
because there's a guy that
green, not blue.
Just above the threshold of what we talk about. Make sure Jackson Dart is not on waivers because had a good game against Philadelphia last time these two teams met. 19 plus fantasy points in all 4 starts so far. He's at 67% roster on CBSSports.com. Could still be available and would be a low-end starter as well. But let's talk about Joe Flacco. I mean, 2 straight games now with over 22 fantasy points. And now he's taking on the Jets, one of his 100th revenge games that he's going to have over the course of his what could still be a very long career. But it's a great opportunity. Sauce Gardner may not play, but we saw what he was able to do against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He just carved apart that defense. And with Jamar Chase playing at the level that he's at, which we know is fantastic, and now unlocking T. Higgins again, we have what we thought we were going to have with the other Joe in Joe Burrow, just looking at how this offense is operating. So I think Flacco's got a chance to not just help you this week, Tommy, because we do have, again, a lot of big quarterbacks on a bye, but he has a chance to help you maybe for the rest of the season. When you get past him, it's a lot of ifs. Marcus Mariota may start for Jaden Daniels, and he's been 20-plus fantasy points in every time he's stepped on the field in a serious capacity for the Commanders. You have Michael Penix potentially as an option taking on the Dolphins. We know that matchup has been very good. Only 2 quarterbacks have been below 20 fantasy points against Miami, but he's got this foot injury to deal with. And I do think then you start to look a little bit long-term. J.J. McCarthy hopefully comes back. Probably not this week because short week for the Vikings, but at some point with the way Carson Wentz has struggled, I think they go back to J.J. McCarthy. And then we look at the 2 QB options. Tyrod Taylor may start for the Jets. Andy Dalton will start for the Panthers. But keep an eye on some other situations. If the Dolphins bench Tua, could be either Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers. We could have the situation with Penix if he doesn't play. Kirk Cousins could be the starter there. So in super flex leagues, 2 quarterback leagues, we could have a few options that we didn't even talk about today.
Okay. And by clear, though, Joe Flacco, clear number 1 over the other guys that in terms of being bullish. Okay.
You saw that game on Thursday.
I sure did.
Now imagine what he does against a worse defense.
Tommy, listen, it's time to be an old quarterback. Rodgers, good. Flacco, good. Stafford, good. If you're old, you're good.
And, boy, they have been definitely showing out so far in 2025. Dave, if you go to running backs, the conversation last week was Kamani Vidal, which, by the way, in one of our leagues, I think you won with a $70 fab waiver request there.
Yeah, it did me a whole lot of good when he was a dud in week number 7.
But what about this week here in week 8 heading into week 9?
There's nothing even as good as Kamani Vidal, which is saying something. There are some running backs that are out there that are interesting, but guys that you can just race right into your lineup in week 8 with all these teams on bye, it's going to be hard. The top name on my list is somebody who's not even playing in week 8. This kind of stresses the point. It's Bam Knight. The Cardinals are on bye. They've got the Cowboys in week 9. I think Bam Knight is the best running back that you could add long term. Now, if you need a running back for this week and you're desperate, look at this list. Look at Isaiah Davis. He's probably not going to play a lot unless Breece Hall is out. We know that Breece Hall is banged up. Aaron Glenn seemed optimistic that Breece Hall would play in the game, so Isaiah Davis might be good for 5 or 6 PPR points. Kyle Monangai had a great game last week. Season high in carries, season high in fantasy points, all that good stuff. But before last week, he wasn't doing much of anything, so I'm nervous to chase those points in a game the Bears were just absolutely annihilating the Saints in. Plus, they're taking on Baltimore, coming off the bye, getting some defenders back up front. I don't think it's going to be quite as good of a matchup unless we learn that the Ravens just aren't healthy on defense, in which case I'm going to reverse everything that I said, and Kyle Monangai would be the best guy. And then Tyjae Spears, we've been talking him up for so many weeks now, and he's just not hitting any type of upside. He is playing a little bit more than Tony Pollard, but he's really more of a desperation ad at this point. Maybe for the bench if you need him. 7 to 9 PPR points each of the last 2 games. No better than a top 30 running back. But the field of running backs right now, it is kind of slim. So maybe you need somebody like Tyjae Spears for this week. Maybe if you need somebody that's going to get you something, he's got a pulse, he's going to play, he's going to catch some passes.
Which you have about 5 or 6 slots higher than both Heath and Jamey in terms of Tyjae Spears. Wide receivers, Jamey, obviously Mike Evans, what we saw from last night, and the buys. What's the landscape of the wide receiver market right
and
now?
Nico Collins dealing with a concussion as well. So I'm going to kind of play it with a floor play and then looking at the guys that may have some upside after that. Darnell Mooney coming back from his hamstring injury. We know what he was last year, and I still think there's a huge ceiling in front of him because he has yet to reach his potential. So for this week, I don't necessarily want to trust him as anything more than a number 3 receiver, but it wouldn't shock me if he gets back into the number 2 wide receiver conversation. So coming back from the injury, looked good, 3 catches, 68 yards. Hopefully there's more to come for him, but we do know Kyle Pitts has taken a step forward, obviously Drake London being there, and the guy in the backfield, Bijan Robinson, so just keep that in mind. Then we look at maybe some short-term options that could be long-term, and this is where the Mike Evans injury comes into play. So Tez Johnson, back-to-back weeks with a touchdown, had a spike in targets in the game Monday night after Mike Evans got hurt. But there's a lot of moving parts here because Chris Godwin may come back. You may have Jalen McMillan coming back. You still have Emeka Egbuka. You have K. Dotton emerging right now. So for 1 week, I don't think we see Godwin for week 8. We get to week 9, it's their bye. Coming out of their bye, we could see potentially, some reinforcements there for Tampa Bay. But it's worth investing in Tez Johnson because we do know that Mike Evans is going to be gone. Then you go to the situation in Houston where there are 2 guys missing. Nico Collins may not play this week, and Christian Kirk did not play. I do think Jaden Higgins is also worth another round through waivers or a cheap bid because he's going to play a lot more as well. But Jalen Noel looked really good in that game. Had a big, 2 big catches actually. Gets 4 catches, 77 yards. All season highs for him, and a pretty solid matchup against San Francisco. Juwan Jennings, I think people forget when Brock Purdy's back, this has been his go-to guy, so don't forget about him. Josh Downs was somebody we were talking about. I know Dave last week, it was his number 1 guy to add off waivers. Then we find out he has a concussion. Well, why don't you go right back to him? But also Alec Pierce on that same team because he's playing well for Daniel Jones, who's in the MVP conversation. And then keep an eye on both guys in Denver, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims. It's going to be a shootout most likely between the Broncos and the Cowboys, and the Cowboys secondary has been absolutely awful. So look at Franklin, had 10 targets last week. Look at Mims, has had 2 good games in his last 4 games, 4 outings. So there's an opportunity for these 2 guys to help you. It's one of these positions where don't invest heavily in fab. Because if you do, we've seen this all throughout the course of the season, whether it's been a Trey Tucker or a Kendrick Bourne or a Kayshon Boutte, like they come back down to earth after these big spike games. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at your fab bets.
I'm a little bit worried about that too because I think people are going to get super excited, especially about Tez Johnson because he's had such good games each of the last 2 weeks. If you see people spending 20, 30% of fab, I feel like that's too much. You feel the same way with Tez Johnson?
I think it all comes down to we're at week 8. There's 6 teams on a bye, a lot of injuries. If you need to spend, you've been holding your fab budget, then I get it. But I think in the case of most fantasy managers, still more injuries to come, unfortunately, and still more bye weeks to do it.
And a lot of receivers out there, as he just illustrated.
Good advice. Be fiscally responsible. Got time for one more position group, the tight ends, which we talked about here. Streamable, movable. What are we doing with them?
Well, we just saw Rondé Gadsden move a lot, and he put up some huge numbers last week against Indianapolis, and he's not even my favorite tight end to add off the waiver wire because of the Mike Evans injury in Tampa. I think K. Dotton is the one. If you need a tight end for this week, he's going to be my favorite one of the bunch, and you can see consensus top 10 tight end. Jamey, you've got him at 5. That's awesome. You see what I see. This is somebody who should pick up a lot of targets and catches, be that good short area outlet and red zone option for Baker Mayfield. Behind him, though, let's talk about Rondé Gadsden. 11.8 PPR points in each of his past 2 games. 8+ targets in each of his last 2 games. Now that goes hand in hand with the Chargers throwing a lot. But I think that's what they're doing now because the run game with Kamani Vidal, we mentioned him a little bit earlier, he's not getting the job done. This is a short week game against Minnesota. The Eagles proved you can throw in Minnesota, and I think Gadsden is kind of like K. Dotton, a short area option. I don't expect a ton of targets from him from week to week, but in that neighborhood of 6, that's what you're looking for from a fantasy tight end at this point. And I think if he gets you 6 targets, he's proven they didn't give you double-digit PPR points. The other tight ends I like, Dalton Schultz. Certainly if Nico Collins isn't there, you can see an uptick in target volume for him. Evan Ingram in that game against Dallas, that's going to be a high-scoring game. The total's right around 50. So you're going to want pieces of that game. Evan Ingram's out there. This is just like the wide receiver position, Tommy. A lot of names out there. You don't want to spend too much on them. People are going to be excited over what Gadsden did in week number 7. Let them overspend on Gadsden. Go after Otten, go after Schultz for a lot less of fab. You can always get one of these tight ends with your second waiver claim if you need a different position with your first waiver claim. Just makes sense to not prioritize any of those tight ends.
This is the one position, though, where fantasy managers may be struggling the most for this week. No McBride, no Bowers, no Laporta. As bad as the position has been at times, those are 3 must-start guys when they're active. And so trying to replace them, you're going to see a lot of people picking up these.
And others just got Kittle back, and Kittle gave up by
I know
that week out. So it is tough this week. Guys, certainly appreciate great stuff as always with Jamey and Dave, also with Adam Azer and Heath Cummings. Make sure to check out the guys from FFT. They've got you covered every day. Scan the QR code on YouTube and also on CBS Sports Network.